Hi there, I'm Linda and this is Huttons Valley Permaculture. Well, we had a significant frost affect the garden this morning. There was lots of crispy plants. It's always beautiful, but I'm always worried about the damage it's going to do. We had lovely looking kale and brassicas, which aren't affected by the frost. Well, not in my garden because it doesn't get too cold. But plants like this nasturtium here were really crispy looking this morning, and it's looking pretty sad right now. Compare the nasturtiums to my brassica plants. These ones are broccoli. They did look crispy this morning, but are looking pretty fantastic right now. These potato plants aren't looking too bad considering how cold it was, but there are some looking a bit more worse for wear. Got these potatoes, my main patch still covered, so let's see how they're looking. Now this potato patch did get hammered with recent heavy rains, and it kind of flattened the plants a bit, but yeah, they're looking kind of unaffected by the cold. Maybe some of the plants that were touching the canvas are a bit more affected than the other plants, although a more significant problem is pests eating these leaves. And yeah, I think I've spotted those little pests there. There's slaters and there's plenty of slugs hiding in here too. These broadbean plants were looking particularly droopy this morning when it was at its coldest, but right now, as you can see, they're just sort of up there again, just like nothing's ever happened. And they're certainly enjoying this sunshine now. Now in the garden today, I'm not doing a lot, but I thought I might just weed a couple of paths and get some wood chips onto it. Now, as for my compost path building, I'll be continuing down the other end, and I might do a little bit of weeding in preparation for one of those. But with this end of the garden, they're not deep compost paths. I do want to put the compost paths right throughout the garden, but it's a lot of work and I know I'm not going to get it all done kind of in 1 year. It might be a 3-4 year project to get the whole garden complete. So knowing that I'm not going to be digging these out at the moment, I'm just going to top them up with a bit more of this beautiful wood chip that I've got behind me. Now I'm just going to roughly weed sort of the edges of the path and the path, but I'll just throw the weeds on top of the wood chip that's currently here, and then we'll get them buried underneath the new layer of wood chip. It's pretty quick and easy, just running your sickle right underneath those weeds in the path, and it doesn't take too long to get the surface ready for the extra wood chips. Now at the same time as weeding, I just kind of look at some of the surrounding plants, and you can chop all of this material kind of fairly easily onto your path before you cover it with the wood chips. Or you could feed that to the chickens, I suppose, but it's going in my path today. There's my first one done. And there's 2 paths done. And the last little path that I'll do today is just this one here. We'll get it weeded and topped up. And that's my 3rd path done. Now while these paths aren't the deep compost paths, by having a fairly deep layer of wood chips on it, we'll still soak up that moisture. It just won't last as long as, you know, the deeper paths with, you know, a foot into the ground. But that will be enough to kind of keep this garden going through summer, and I might just have to water this end more than the other until I can get it all done. A couple of weeks ago, I was harvesting one of my cabbage heads that was ready, and one of the comments from a viewer said, "How are you going to eat all of that cabbage, Linda?" Well, when you grow your own food, you kind of get a bit inventive. With the cabbages, I will do a chop suey sort of thing, a stir fry, coleslaw, just a sauteed cabbage with tallow and onion and garlic and pepper. That's really lovely. So you just kind of get inventive with all the things you can do with the food when plants are ready in the garden to be harvested, you just got to make the most of it. Now, it was just in the last video that I harvested this collie here and made some vegetable bakuras. Well, we've got another collie head that really needs to get into the kitchen. I've still got some of the other one there. So it's at this time that you can't become a bit inventive with what you do. But one of my favourite things to do with lots of cauliflower is make a cauliflower soup. So I'm going to take this head today. Even though I don't immediately need it, it does need to come in. Look at that. This morning this was all glimmering with lots of frost on it, and it looks really unaffected by any of that. Brassica's amazing. So we'll take that inside, but first I'm going to grab some fennel to go with it. Just down from the collie bed, I've got some fennel that I'd transplanted from another area, and these are growing into really amazing bulbs, but I usually like to roast those. The fennel that I'm going to grab is just from one of my plants with a huge root system, and it kind of just shoots up lots of different fennel sort of through winter. So I'm just going to grab a couple of those. It's just going to be cut up and sort of pureed in this soup anyway. So we don't kind of need the big bulb. It's just about getting a bit of flavour into the soup. I probably need to just grab a couple of these. And we'll leave the rest to grow on a bit further. Don't need all the leaves on it. There's enough there for flavour. So that's ready for the kitchen. I've got my ingredients assembled. The collie, fennel. I've got some beef stock there. This is homemade stock paste, just out of vegetables. Garlic paste, some pepper. And this is just a bit of beef tallow from the beef stock. Now just chop up the veggies and then add in the tallow or add in your fat. Then the other ingredients are added and I just cook that for about 20 minutes. I then just whiz it up for a bit, and you can have your soup like that, but some people might like to add some cream. I'm going to add some coconut milk powder because I'm dairy free. And cauliflower soup is ready. Well, we've had another cold start today, and the potatoes that were looking okay yesterday are looking fairly sad, and the same with the nasturtium. If they weren't wiped out yesterday, they were going to be wiped out today. After doing some easy paths yesterday, I'm going to start to tackle this path through here. In this section, we've got two paths, one down next to my carrot bed or chamomile bed, and the other one's up next to this garden here. I'll probably have to remove these two posts, and the garden bed's going to be right through the middle. So today I'm just going to focus on getting this area cleared. Looking at it from this angle, you can kind of see that path's supposed to follow through there, and there should be a little path in next to that red Swiss chard that comes through and right through here. So that kind of leaves that section through the middle to line up with the garden bed that's over there. So I'm not going to do a whole path in the day like I have done recently, because there's a lot involved in this section. There's two paths and one garden bed to clear, and that's a bit of work. Just having a bit of a look around at what's here. We've got this tree that needs to go. The nightshade type plants need to go. This tomato plant over the last 2 days has kind of been decimated, so we don't have to worry about that one. That was a volunteer. The only plants that I might keep are some Swiss chard that are hiding in amongst the weeds, and they seem to be in the middle of the bed. So if they're lucky, they'll get to stay. So the end is a good place to start. So we're going to get going from here, move out some of the stuff that's in the way, and get going. As usual, I'm cutting the grass's roots out, but some of the other plants I'll probably just chop off if I can. Now I usually try and leave the borage, but these plants are kind of right in the middle of the path, so I'll move them out the way. And there's a few little seedlings about the place, so I might kind of hang on to those and get some new plants started when we clear everything. Yep, plenty of little plants that we can use to replace any of the larger ones I have to take out. Always good to get the blackberries out. The last time I did a bit of clearing in these garden beds, it was in the middle of summer and it was so hot and the soil was dried and fairly hard really. I think it has improved over the years. So now that it's winter and we've had quite a bit of rain, it makes this process fairly easy really, especially with those grasses that pull out a lot easier in damp soil than in dried soil. Get this tree out. Ooh. I think they're a pioneer species and they've got a tap root, but it doesn't go too deep. So these trees are fairly easy to pull out if you get them young. I let them grow in other places, but I don't need it in my garden. Our piles of weeds are growing and I think we're about a third of the way now. Just a little bit of an intermission from my gardening for the moment. At this time of year, I'm always a little bit distracted by what's happening out in the paddock. These are the 3 that were born 4 days ago. And there's a little one hiding over in the grass there that was born this morning. And that's its mum calling out to it, but it's sound asleep. And we've got this mum here and Annie here, the black one. He'll be mums again soon. Hello, Annie. Annie's a friendly girl. Good girl. So all looking fairly peaceful there this morning. Well, that's our sheep intermission over. I'm back to it now. Let's get the rest of this done. We're nearly at the end. These jobs always seem to take longer than what you reckon. Started off easy and then the weeds got more challenging. Well, I'm pretty confident I've cut out most of the weeds in this garden bed here. Now, some of the weeds along the path sections aren't out, but I'll be digging that up anyway. So I've left quite a lot of this Swiss chard in the middle. Some of it down the end there will probably go, but that's actually beyond where this garden bed goes to. Now, I'm on one of the paths here, and it will probably go through to about here, and I'll just make the other path the same. And then down that end, I'll just have it as a wood chipped space really. It's good to be able to put, you know, pots and plants and things down there. And it'll be next to my strawberry bed. So who knows, maybe I'll extend the strawberries a little bit down there. But for the moment, that's pretty clear. I've just got to get all the weeds moved now. A lot of this material could actually go back into the paths. And that's, you know, what I plan for the future. But so much of this contains weeds that I just don't want anywhere near my garden that I've decided it'd be easier just to move it all up to my compost area and we'll deal with it in a hot compost. Well, we've got stage 1 done And hopefully, it looks like late showers tomorrow, so we should have weather so I can get out here and maybe at least get one of these little paths done. Fingers crossed. The garden looks 1000% better already just with all of that weed gone. Before we get into the path dig today, I thought I'd talk through the project that I have in mind for the soil that I dig out. Along this fence here where you'll see little animal fences and pots and all sorts of things, that's where I've plugged holes to keep my dogs in when I had them. So I don't need that anymore. I'm not having any more dogs. So I'm thinking of actually creating a flower garden right along this back fence. It'll go from my chicken yard all the way along to sort of virtually where my apple trees are down there. It's a place that I can dedicate to sort of flowering plants. You know, I don't have any lavender anywhere. There's lots of little beautiful plants that I haven't got that would grow great kind of in this space here. And also just kind of masses of sunflowers would just be beautiful during summer. So I'm going to create a thing of beauty, I hope, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm going to start by getting the soil out of those two paths and move it down here rather than put it in a halfway place, which I've done with the other two paths. So I've got to clear some space here. I'm just going to do a small section at a time, kind of get that established, and kind of just keep moving on down the line. The first section I'm planning to do is from the chicken coop through to kind of here, or maybe the next post there. And all I need to do is clear out some of this rubbish so that I can just pile the soil right on top. Well, that's this section cleared. And this is what was sort of plugging in the holes to keep those little puppies in. Okay, it's nice to have this area already prepared. So I'm just going to do as I've done with my last two paths and just scrape what is the nice topsoil part onto the garden bed, so into the middle here, before digging out the path. That's the top scraped off and the outline of where my paths will be. At least one of them looks to be going a little bit crooked, but maybe I'll straighten that up when I start digging them out. So now the hardest part of the whole process is actually digging the soil and getting it moved. I'll let my little blue wren have a little nibble first. How you going, buddy? You good? I decided to do just one path at a time in case the rains come. So I've dug out this path and I've dumped it at my back fence, and then I filled it with some old bits of wood that I gathered from up the top of the property and were sitting in my trailer for some time actually. So I've filled it with that, and then I've just filled it with wood chips. Now this bed here is what I'm going to grow some sweet potatoes in come spring and into summer. And I was doing some homework on it, and it turns out they don't really like a lot of nitrogen. So instead of filling this with lots of greens and manure, I've just kind of done a woody layer, which is a high carbon content, just in case that does impact the garden bed next to it, which will be sweet potatoes. Yesterday was a bit too rainy to get out to dig out my fourth path, so I'm back here today. This morning I wasn't sure I would be able to get it done either because rain was forecast. So I've collected all of the materials this morning just in case the rain did come. But it's not here yet, and I think we've still got a small window of opportunity to get it done. And we got the fourth path complete. Now that I've done these, that's all I'm going to do for the moment. I might change my mind, but for the moment, I'm just going to leave it. There's plenty of work to do elsewhere, like out in my swales, but it's a good job to get done in winter because the soil is really quite easy to dig into and move. and made the job a lot easier than in perhaps the middle of summer when it's going to be rock hard. A few more paths just to top up and define, so that can be for another day. With all of those weeds gone now, this end of the garden looks so much better, and the renovations is going to make watering in summer so much easier. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.